So there is my very first oil painting. So on the right is a very quick pen and ink with a bit of I think I used a white gel pen and a Posca white pen. I did that a couple of nights ago, and today alla prima so far, if I don't do any more like tomorrow and that. Like I said, my first oil painting, and it's really weird. Now, I've been back into my art for 3 years, and I've done all kinds of things using acrylics, watercolour, graphite, charcoal, gouache, all sorts of things. The reason I haven't mucked around with oil paint is definitely because, long story, but won't go into it, but I've got sensitive skin, and a few years ago I started to suffer a bit with a nasal problem, both of which are not bad at the moment. But if I was to start using turpentine or even odorless mineral spirits and that, it would could become a problem, and so I'd rather not risk it at the moment. So what I thought I would do, instead of going down the route of the water, you can get the water active oil paints. But what I decided to do was just use oil paint with no medium. So either alla prima, or even if I do it over a few days, as long as I don't use any mediums and that, it shouldn't be a problem. And I started out with two professional tubes of Winsor and Newton titanium white and an ivory black, just to see how I got on really. Got a couple of brushes. So the first thing, I mean, there's lots of things I can see, although a lot of people might think that it's pretty obvious. It's obvious if you use oil paints, but if you don't, even if you hear about it, when you actually get to do it, then you might start to notice it. So I've only got a handful of brushes that I got that I was going to use for the oil paints, because I like to keep my brushes separate to look after them. I actually bought a cheap rigger, and I was going to use it, but what I realised is without any medium or oil or anything, the paint was a bit stiff, so it wasn't moving very well, which made me realise one of the reasons people would use medium. And but obviously I got to stay away from it, so I just used a little short, makes you laugh, a lot of it was marking out with this one, and then a nice flat. And so that was one of the first things I realised, that one of the brushes I wanted to use I couldn't use. So yeah, that's the first one I've ever done, and it was a really weird experience because it's so unlike other things. I mean, every medium has got its pros and cons, but for example, if I was doing that with acrylic, I'm leaning on it quite often. I don't use a stick or anything to keep my hand off of it, because acrylic dries so quick that the sooner you've done it, if it's a thin layer, it's near enough touch dry and you can lean on it and carry on. Obviously with oils, because they're still going to be wet, so that's one thing you've got to get used to. So it's completely foreign to me. What was I going to say? Yeah, so it was really strange doing it, because like I said, it's all new to me. And so the paint's wet, and you're still trying to get a head around that if it was acrylic or watercolor or gouache, it would dry and then that would be it. And you're going back in, and say like you want to change something, make it a bit lighter, a bit darker with acrylics or something, you're painting back over it. Whereas obviously with oil paint, say you want to make it lighter, and like I'm using just black and white, then obviously I just get a bit of white on my brush and I can work it in. And even ages after now, I'm still able to work into it. And the same with the palette. It's really strange because I'm so used to acrylic, although it's pretty good. Acrylic's pretty good on the palette, and depending on how much you put on. But it's still strange. It's weird. I can't express it. It's just so strange that you're so used to when you put paint down, you've got to use it within a certain amount of time. It will dry, and with oils, you don't even have to think about it. And like I said, going back in, working over the things. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to leave this painting as it is. I might do, and a reason I might do is because sometimes I like the first one I've done of something, or one of the first good ones. Luckily, I've hit the ground running reasonably. I think I have anyway, and my inner critic would go mad. But you have to say that if you've never used a medium before and you get anything like what it's supposed to be like, then you're on a winner there. So now the thing is, I'm not necessarily, and I'm probably not going to do loads of oil paintings. What I did think is, first of all, I like to have a tool in my pocket, so I like to be able to say, if I wanted to, I could use oil paint. I have used it before, and the advantages as well. So I've just got into portrait painting a bit, and what I did think was the way that the paint stays open a bit might actually help when it comes to getting flesh tones and mucking around with faces and everything. So whereas acrylic, yes, you can just paint over it, but then you're sort of you're almost like you're redoing something. Whereas with the oil paint, you just you can very gently go back in, and you only, if there's one area that needs blending or whatever, you can just do that area. It's not a problem. And acrylics is a little bit more difficult because sometimes when you go back into something to paint over a part of it, where one's dried and this one isn't, there's a colour that there is a difference colour that can be. I mean, I've got around it, but you don't have that worry with oil paint because it still hasn't. It's not, well, it don't technically dry. It cures or whatever they call it, but you haven't got that problem at all. So for a very small narrow window, it might be worth me doing, and that's what I'm going to be doing. Just mucking about probably with portraits, but for my first ever oil painting, what I wanted to do was a subject I've done many times. So I've done barn owls, I've done them in watercolour, graphite, charcoal, pen and ink, acrylic, and so it helps you with your confidence. I mean, the funny thing is that whenever I do a painting of a sketch I've done, I quite often prefer the sketch anyway. It's just, I just love sketches. And so the one on the right, I mean, it was really, really quick. I mean, you can see it's not laboured on or nothing, but that looseness is something I actually really love. And sometimes when I do a painting, I find it can get a bit tight if I'm not careful. So yeah, so I don't know if it's finished. If it is, it will be that's an alla prima painting, and that's one way you can paint with oils and not have to worry about solvents. I think I will just quickly mention, because one of the other things I thought about before I did it, the oil painting, was I thought about cleaning your brush, and then I can't remember the bloke. There was a bloke, and he said, you don't have to worry about it because you just you can just clean most of the paint off with a rag, and you know you can near enough go straight into something. It's only like if you had like he said basically, like if you had a sports car that was a perfectly yellow, then you need to not have a dirty brush at all. But if you had a tiny bit of dirty of another colour, if you get most of it out, you'd actually be pretty much all right, because rarely in nature and other things is something so perfectly bright, perfect yellow all over. It's so, and I found even with black and white, even with the white, I had to really, really clean it. I found using like a kitchen towel was much better than a rag I had, because the kitchen towel soaks up a lot of the paint. But it's a little bit more tricky, but I don't have to worry about it, because that's one of the main things. I thought I don't want to have like even mineral spirits or something like that, because although it's odorless, it's still, especially with my hands and that, I wouldn't want to get it on them. And the thing is with mineral spirits, you might not smell it, but it's still going in there. And some people with some of the mediums as well get sore throats, and that's something I would definitely suffer from. So yeah, I just thought it's the first ever oil painting I've done. I know I'm rambling a bit, but I am rambling with useful information about trying a new medium. and it's so different, like I said. So I'm going to leave it there. Bye for now.